Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about Hydra Ramp. I'm very excited to bring this list to you because for those who are longtime viewers of the channel, you know I love playing big green creatures, so I'm very excited to talk about this deck today. A couple things we got to talk about before we go into the video here. If you have any suggestions for upcoming videos, just let me know in the comment section. And is there any Hydras that I didn't feature in this deck that I definitely should have? Just let me know in the comment section. I know there's a bunch of really good Hydras that didn't quite make the cut, but they are still very solid in their own right. And the last thing I've got to mention before we hop into it here, huge shout out to Cody. He's one of the players that plays at Commander Crane Studios when we do paper videos here on the channel. And a while ago, he was talking about, man, I wish there was a Hydra deck you could play for Pioneer, because he loves mono green devotion. You know, he plays like Pelucranos and he plays for Voracious Hydra, and you know, it'd be cool if there was just a Hydra deck. And I was like, man, you know, I really want to feature a Hydra deck here on the channel. I had never done that before, and it's technically a 3-card combo, but it'll make sense in a moment. But I think that 3-card combo really helps push a deck like this, which will make sense in a moment here. But let's go ahead and hop into the early game ramp. We're playing 4 Llanowar and 4 Elvish Mystic and 4 Wolf Willow Haven as our main source of ramp for the most part. Really nothing too special about them. It's just the best way pretty much to ramp for the most part, at least on turns 1 through 2 in the Pioneer metagame. So we're pretty much going to hop right into the Hydras here. But first, we got to talk about Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. So, spoiler alert, we're not actually playing a devotion package in this deck. I know it seems a little crazy, but we're not really fully going in on the devotion package just because the Hydras that we're doing, it'll make sense in a moment. We're not playing the ley lines. Could we have gone a devotion package? Technically, yes, but I think it's more consistent if we don't, and it'll make sense. So Kiora is more of just a value card for the most part. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters battlefield under your control, draw a card, and then -1 untap target permanent, which we're going to be mostly untapping lands with this card. But Kiora is definitely very solid. All right, so the Hydras, let's talk about them. Our only non-X cost Hydras that we're playing 3 Pelucranos Reborn and 4 Gargos Vicious Watcher. So Pelucranos Reborn obviously is just a solid card. 4/5, green with reach. And then for 6 in a Phyrexian White, we can transform it. And it transforms basically into a Wormcoil engine for the most part. It's definitely a very solid card. Huge fan of it. It's a Hydra, which fits the deck perfect. Buys us some early game, you know, like time for the most part. And then if we're able to flip it, if any of our other Hydras die, we get the 2, which is really sweet. Because most of the time with Pelucranos, it's really just whenever itself dies, you get that. Because, you know, you're not typically playing a lot of Hydras. But we actually get to take advantage of Hydras in this deck. So definitely very cool. Gargos Vicious Watcher, probably one of my, I don't want to say favorite cards, but like, you know, probably like top like 20 cards. I've always liked this card. I had a sweet commander deck with it a while ago. It's sweet. 8/7 with Vigilance. Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos Vicious Watcher fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So the fight ability on this is really sweet. You know, whenever opponent, you know, if they like Doomblade it or, you know, whatever, at least we get a little bit of value from Gargos. You know, we can take out, but I mean, it's an 8/7. If our opponent has a creature, it's most likely going to die from Gargos at the very minimum. But if we actually get to untap with this, our Hydra spells cost 4 colorless less to cast. So it just pays for the generic cost in it. So for instance, if we somehow wanted to cast another Gargos, it would, you know, cover the 3, so it would just be green. So what are the Hydras that we're actually going to be casting that'll cost 4 less? Let's go ahead and take a look at those. So we're playing 3 Gold Vein Hydra, 4 Voracious Hydra, and 3 Hydroid Krasis. So Gold Vein Hydra is the brand new Hydra from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Vigilance, Trample, Haste, enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. When it dies, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to its power. This card is really strong. I know it's weird that I'm only playing 3 copies of it, but it'll make sense, at least like my rationale behind it. It'll make sense here in a moment. But this card's really good. I love Gold Vein Hydra. I think this card is sweet. So essentially, if we have a Gargos in play, we can pay 1 green and get a 4/4, which is pretty sweet. We're also playing 4 copies of Voracious Hydra. Green X, trample, enters the battlefield with X counters. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1, double the number of 1/1 counters on it, or it fights target creature you don't control. Then we're also playing 3 copies of Hydroid Krasis. Probably my favorite blue card, even though it's not even really a blue card. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain half X life and draw half X cards. Round down each time. Flying Trample. Enters battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. Okay. So the reason we only played 3 copies of Goldvein Hydra as opposed to 4 Voracious Hydra and 3 of Krasis is pretty simple. So Goldvein Hydra is an incredibly pushed card. I think the card is fantastic. I decided to go with 4 copies of Voracious Hydra though, just because it does fight. You know, we are a ramp deck. You know, by the time we can start casting some of our big creatures, we're going to need to be able to probably kill some of our opponent's creatures. The other thing I want to mention is Voracious Hydra, in a way, is kind of like a, you know, like, I don't want to say like a one-shot kill, but let's say we have Gargos in play. We have a couple of lands in play, boom. This enters with like 7 1/1 counters, then becomes 14. It's kind of like a, okay, if you don't answer this, you're going to die, which I understand with Goldvein, if it does die, you get a little bit of value. And believe me, I understand. I think Goldvein Hydra is really, really strong. And then I also decided to play 3 copies of Hydroid Krasis just because, you know, if we're sitting here ramping, or, you know, using all the cards in our hand, we need to be able to draw some more cards. So that's why I decided to play the Hydroid Krasis. Boom, X equals 7 or 8. Boom, we're going to draw 3 to 4 cards. We're going to gain some life. We're going to refill. Maybe cast another Hydroid Krasis. Oh, now we have a Gargos with a Goldvein Hydra. That's kind of the idea. That's why I decided to just play the 3 copies of Goldvein Hydra. Because, you know, we also want to play enough lands. We want to be able to cast our spells too. It's kind of like a weird mix. But we're also playing another card that technically can help us grab a Goldvein Hydra or any of the creatures in our deck or any lands. We're playing 4 Archdruid's Charm, which this is kind of the card I was talking about earlier that I think is really going to help a deck like this. So it's got 3 modes on it, but the main mode that we're going to be choosing is search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put on the battlefield tapped if it's a land card, otherwise put into your hand. So it says land card, not just basic land. So I think a lot of people, you know, some people probably know like the combo I'm talking about here. Speaking of the combo, let's hop into the lands. So the idea is we want to assemble Sunken Citadel and Castle Garenbrig. That's exactly why we're playing the Archer's Charm package and everything like that. It's because we can make an insane amount of mana with Sunken Citadel and Castle Garenbrig. Obviously, we're going to name green pretty much every time with this. We can name blue in a pinch. And then we tap that. We tap the Castle Garenbrig. It just makes so much mana. Realistically, if we have 2 Sunken Citadels and a Castle Garenbrig, we make 6 mana off of 3 lands, which is pretty insane. I actually got the original idea, I kind of knew it was a thing, but huge shout out to Arfie Games, actually. I'll leave a link for his channel in the description. He loves to play dinosaurs and play Sunken Citadel with Castle Garenbrig, so he can play some really, really large dinosaurs. And, after seeing him play it, I'm like, man, that's actually not too bad. I really, really like that. What other creatures could we also cast with Sunken Citadel and Castle Garenbrig? So huge shout out to him. He's the one that kind of, drew my attention to this, so to speak. So definitely a huge fan of this package. That's also the reason why we're not playing the Nykthos, is because Archdruid's Charm is triple green. Sure, we could play a couple, but largely, that's not really what we're looking to do. We're looking to just assemble Sunken Citadel and Castle Garenbrig and cast some really, really big Hydras. So, anyways, let's talk about the rest of our lands. Speaking of Hydras, we're playing 2 Lair of the Hydra. We're a Hydra deck. We have to play Lair of the Hydra. It's also just really good. Sunken Citadel makes 2 green, which also can help activate the Lair, which is pretty sweet. So definitely a huge fan of the Lairs in this deck. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 4 Breeding Pool, 4 Bark Channel Pathways, our main dual lands in the format. We're also playing 2 Cavernous Souls. So Cavernous Souls obviously making our Hydras uncounterable is sweet, but with Archdruid's Charm, it is triple green. So we don't want to be playing a lot of lands that can't make green. So that's why every other land in our deck can make green mana. It's very, very important because, if we get like 2 Caverns in play, all of a sudden it's really awkward. We can't catch the Archdruid's Charm, and we pretty much die. So that's why we're just playing the 2 Cavernous Souls. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 1 Boseiju and 3 basic forests. And as our spicy basic land of the day, I decided to play the Theros Beyond Death Forest. I featured this numerous times here on the channel. I was having a hard time trying to find a good spicy forest to play. I tried to find like an original Theros one that kind of fit like a Hydra theme, and I couldn't find one. And whenever I think of Hydra, I think of Theros, which makes me think of this forest artwork. So that's why I decided to pick that one. That's pretty much it. So okay, let's go and hop into the sideboard as well as some budget options that you can play for your deck. All right. Sideboarding is pretty simple. we're going to want some graveyard hate. Personally, I would recommend Tormod's Script. It's the cleanest answer. It's 0 mana, gets rid of our opponent's graveyard. We don't have to devote any mana into it, so it doesn't really disrupt our plan for the most part. Stubborn Denial. I personally recommend playing it probably 3 to 4 copies in your sideboard. It's the most efficient way, essentially, to be able to protect our Hydras, just because our opponent, they're going to be playing Fatal Push, they're going to be playing Doom Blades, especially in the post board. We're going to want to be able to protect our Hydras. Stubborn Denial is cheap and it's good. You could also play a card like Tyvar Stand or, a green protection spell, but at least with Stubborn Denial, you can also board it in. You can counter Planeswalkers, you can counter something else, so that's personally why I would do Stubborn Denial. And Vampire Hate. Rakdos Vampires is everywhere in the format right now. I would personally recommend Pithing Needle and or Pick Your Poison as ways to hate on the Vampire deck. And the last thing I want to mention is Mistcutter Hydra. So it's not the best card in the metagame, but when I think of like a sideboard Hydra, it's definitely Mistcutter Hydra. It has the protection from blue, can't be countered, it's got haste, it hates on blue-white control especially. If they don't have a white removal spell, they're pretty much just going to die to the Mistcutter Hydra. So definitely a huge fan of Mistcutter Hydra. I'm packing 2 copies in my sideboard. If you want to know my exact sideboard, it'll be in the description below. You just click on the link and you can check it out from there. And the last thing we have to talk about is the budget options. So the deck as a whole is not crazy expensive, but with the Cavern of Souls and the Beseiju and such, it really does add up. So how can we play a budget alternative? So as simple as it sounds, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, duh, but play some budget Hydras. Voracious Hydra and Goldvein Hydra are relatively pricey Hydras in terms of, what we're trying to build. Just really any budget Hydra that's good. Heck, main board the Mistcutter Hydras if you want to. If you have some Hungering Hydras, any Hydras you have laying around, you can just swap it right into that. The other way to make the deck not expensive is by playing mono green Hydras. Most of the deck itself is relatively cheap, except for like the Beseiju and the Caverns and like some of the dual lands. That's what really makes the deck pricey. So this is the second time I've done this, because I know I did it in the cat video, but in the description, I also have a budget Hydra deck. If you're not looking to be spending, crazy amounts on a fun Pioneer deck, it's in the description. The deck, I want to say, is about $98 US, which is why you could easily build a Hydra deck for under $100. The deck at its core, it's a little bit different. There's not as many like X spell Hydras, but you do get to play Genesis Hydra, and you get to play cards like Hydra Broodmaster and the original Pelucranos, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit different than the build we featured here, but if you're looking to play budget Hydras and you're not looking to break the bank, I highly suggest checking that deck out. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph and Matt. If you are interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 US a month. You get access to the exclusive Discord as well as other features here on the channel. So definitely you should check that out. So I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.